Welcome to A Powerless Mage Presents, the show dedicated to granting you the ultimate shortcut to well-informed insight. Today's deep dive is, it's really for you, the knowledge seeker, for anyone who craves not just facts, but a fundamental foundational shift in perception.
Right, a shift in how you see the very fabric of social interaction.
Exactly. We're zeroing in on two, seemingly innocent phrases.
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
Right, and we should be clear from the start. We're not here to teach you manners. That's not the goal.
No, not at all. We're here to explore how transforming the use of these two words from, well, empty social conditioning
into genuine conscious connection.
Yeah.
How that can radically alter your fulfillment and, honestly, your influence.
That's the precise mission here. I mean, this is a deep dive aimed at achieving two massive breakthroughs at the same time.
Okay.
First, internalizing the concept of profound conscious gratitude, making it a sustainable source of well-being.
And second, we are practicing the intellectual deprogramming, or maybe a better word, is the conscious reorientation of one of society's most deeply rooted conditionings.
That's a huge claim.
It is, but the sources we've gathered, they aren't just about, good etiquette. They're actually revolutionary.
So.
They challenge the fundamental assumption that please and thank you are just these automatic niceties.
The little words we use so things don't get awkward.
Exactly, to avoid minor frictions. Instead, they force us toward a radical conscious use of these phrases.
Okay.
And in doing that, they expose the deep sociological contract that's hidden just beneath simple politeness.
And we really need to emphasize this because it's crucial. This is not about stopping their use.
Oh, God, no. That would be socially disastrous.
Right. It's about leveraging them. It's
Yeah.
about understanding the high stakes involved in every single request and every acknowledgement.
So that we can gain the perception of power and well-being they truly bring.
When they're intentional.
When they are intentional, meaningful, and consciously deployed.
Yes. We're moving from muscle memory to mindful action.
Precisely. And if we're going to achieve that reorientation, we have to do a kind of mental reset.
We have to start at the absolute beginning.
The absolute beginning. Why do we, as, autonomous adults, even use these specific words?
When we want something or when we receive something.
Yeah. And if the answer is just because my mother told me to, then we're giving up a massive amount of personal agency.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's really get into it and not just skate over the foundations.
Let's do it.
The moment you ask the average person, or even, yourself, why do you say please? The answers are almost always, well, they're shallow.
Right. We call that the default answer versus the deep question. The conditioning is just so strong.
So the default is just automatic.
Completely automatic. It's because that's what we were taught, or, because it's the right and kind thing to do.
And those answers are polite.
They're polite, but intellectually, they're a surrender. They're just rote, socially acceptable answers that mask what's really going on underneath.
I have to push back a little here, though.
Go for it.
If society has decided that these are the mandatory verbal lubricants that keep us from grinding against each other, why is challenging that conditioning even necessary? Isn't mandatory politeness, even if it's unconscious, better than just chaos?
That's a really fair challenge, but the source material argues that pure conditioning, while, yeah, it's functional, it strips the interaction of real meaning.
Okay.
And therefore, it strips it of any real emotional payoff. The deeper inquiry requires us to ask the question again. Why?
Really, why?
If the words are just muscle memory you learned in kindergarten, they hold no true power. They don't bring well-being to you or to the person you're talking to.
So they just become, friction smoothing?
Yeah.
A way to not be called rude.
That's all they are. It's not true connection building.
So the goal is to stop operating on autopilot. Because autopilot, in this context, it's the enemy of conscious fulfillment.
It's the enemy of well-being.
Yeah.
Exactly. We want the fulfillment that comes from knowing we genuinely acknowledge a voluntary contribution from another person.
So the objective here is to use these expressions consciously.
Yes. To unlock the well-being and the profound recognition they offer. We want to transform them from social crutches.
A habit we just lean on because we don't know any better.
We don't know the mechanics of voluntary social compliance, and we turn them into meaningful tools that reflect a deep understanding of our own interdependence.
And to get to that deep understanding, we have to look at the societal contract.
Yes. This is the foundational sociological principle under every non-hierarchical request. And we have to be rigorously realistic here.
What does that mean? Rigorously realistic.
Realism dictates that when you strip away all the layers of culture and, sentimentality, members of society primarily act in their own interest. And secondarily, they act in the interest of other members of their society.
That sounds a little cynical.
It's not cynicism, it's just the mechanism of survival and efficiency. We collaborate when it serves us, either directly or by strengthening the web that supports us all.
And this leads to a crucial implication, doesn't it? It's why we have a request instead of a command.
Precisely. Unless an action is ordered by a superior, unless there's a specific established hierarchical obligation.
Like your boss telling you to do something you're paid to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A paid employee following a direct instruction. Barring that, no member of society is obligated to comply with a request that doesn't benefit them or the wider society they rely on.
Let's really hammer that home. The difference between a transactional obligation and a voluntary collaboration.
Okay, so if you pay a barista for a coffee, they have a contractual obligation to make it for you. That's a transaction.
Simple enough.
But if you ask that same barista to hold your sleeping baby for a second while you run to the restroom...
A request completely outside their job description.
Completely. A non-monetary request, they're not obligated. That is the realm where please actually matters.
That is such a critical distinction.
Yeah.
And this deep dive really focuses on that non-obligated space.
It has to.
Like, I'm not obligated to stop what I'm doing to help my colleague debug their code.
Nope.
I am not obligated to mess up my own schedule to give my friend a lift across town.
And recognizing that every single instance of non-hierarchical help is a voluntary gift of time, energy, or resources, that is the key realization.
Because if you could just demand these gifts,
society would be chaos, or, more likely, a rigid authoritarian structure. The very existence of the word please signals the democratic nature of the request.
Democratic. How so?
It exists because the person you are speaking to holds the inherent, undeniable power of rejection.
They could just say no.
They can say no, and they don't even owe you an explanation.
And this brings us right to the persuasive pitch. We have to persuade you, the listener, that this analysis is actually worth the effort.
Right. And the pitch is this. By understanding the conditioned, automatic use of these words, you are taking the first revolutionary step toward reclaiming your own agency.
You're making your communication truly intentional.
You are moving beyond the surface level of just manners, and you're entering the profound, high-stakes negotiation of human effort and cooperation.
So we're moving from doing what we were told is polite
to doing what we mean is respectful. When you use a phrase automatically, you aren't engaging your own judgment.
Or the well-being that comes from an intentional connection.
Not at all. But when you use it intentionally, you acknowledge the high value and the voluntary nature of the other person's decision to support you, and that sincerity. That is the persuasive mechanism that increases collaboration in the long run.
Let's just pause on that idea of agency.
Okay.
When we operate unconsciously, the social script owns us. But when we operate consciously, we own the script. We can bend it to our intentional will.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So before we move on to decoding the mechanics of the word itself, really just sit with this foundational truth for a moment. Before this deep dive, how often have you paused to consider the true societal obligation or total lack thereof behind the last time you asked someone for help, and what would that realization have changed about how you phrased your request?
Okay, so now that we've established that the receiver of the request has the ultimate authority to refuse.
They hold all the cards.
They hold all the cards. Let's deeply analyze the mechanism we use to try and swing that decision in our favor. The word please.
What I find so striking in the source material is the clarity that please is not an appeal to some external law or duty.
No, absolutely not. That's please as an appeal, not authority. You aren't invoking some universal law that says they must help you.
You can't. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't. You are recognizing that since they have no obligation, the only path forward is a genuine appeal.
And this appeal, it doesn't target obedience. It targets something else.
It targets something far more fundamental. Shared values. It appeals to the implicit argument that the requested action is being performed to favor society.
Or, and this is probably more common in daily life.
Right. Or to strengthen the personal bond with the person who will execute the action.
Let's break down that implicit argument, because that feels like the core of conscious communication.
It is.
Say, I want a colleague to review my complex 50-page proposal before tomorrow. If I just say, review this proposal, what happens?
They see an imposition, a demand.
Okay. But if I say, please review this proposal, what am I implicitly arguing?
Well, you might be saying one of a few things, depending on your relationship and your tone.
Like what?
Argument one could be societal. I know this helps my project, but ultimately the success of this project benefits our company, which stabilizes your career too.
Okay, the we're all in this together argument.
Exactly. Argument two could be about the personal bond. I value our professional relationship, and I'm calling in a favor, signaling that I will reciprocate this voluntary effort when you need it.
The I owe you one argument.
Right. And argument three could be about vulnerability. I recognize that I cannot succeed without your expertise, and I am humbling myself to ask for a gift of your time.
So by adding please, I'm giving them a legitimate, acknowledged reason to say yes that isn't just about my own selfish desire.
You're supplying the emotional or social currency they need to make a voluntary investment in your success.
And that leads directly to the empowerment of choice.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. Adding please to an order fundamentally empowers the executor.
It empowers the person being asked.
Fundamentally. We often think adding please is a sign of our good breeding, but in reality, it is a crucial, high-stakes acknowledgement of their power and their autonomy.
Wait a second. Are you saying that saying please is actually an admission of weakness or dependence? Because that feels radical.
I wouldn't say weakness.
We've been taught it's a strength, a sign of respect.
It's both, but the sources really stress the dependence side. It is a strength because it leverages respect, but it functions by admitting vulnerability.
Okay.
It allows them to exercise their judgment, to decide whether to obey the order or not. If I try to demand something, I risk conflict because I'm trying to override their autonomy.
But if I request with please...
If you request with please, you are explicitly saying, I recognize your autonomy and I appeal to your good nature or our shared interest. You are handing the power over to them.
The psychological dynamic there is fascinating.
It is.
When you feel ordered, your automatic resistance just shoots up.
Of course.
But when you feel respected and autonomous, you're naturally more inclined to demonstrate that autonomy through, well, generosity.
Right. By giving them the power to say no, you actually increase the likelihood of them saying yes.
The power lies entirely with the person being asked.
Entirely. Think about it like you're lending money. If someone just demands money from you, you instantly shut down.
Right, of course.
But if someone explains their situation, shows you the implicit value of their project, and asks respectfully acknowledging your power as the lender, you are far more likely to consider the request on its merits.
Because the requester is acknowledging the debt they are creating.
They're initiating a debt. And this reinforces the reality we often forget. Using please is not a guarantee.
It's not an obligation that the request will be fulfilled.
Not at all. It's just the most powerful tool we have in our social toolbox to ethically and persuasively increase the odds of collaboration.
And this brings us to the implications of recognizing non-obligation.
Yes. Why is this so deeply empowering for the person making the request?
Well, because when we realize the person is not obligated, their yes is completely transformed.
It's no longer compliant.
It's a genuine voluntary choice, a gift of their finite resources.
And that changes how we feel about the help we receive, doesn't it?
Completely. If they were obligated, say, by their job, their action is just a fulfillment of duty. And our gratitude is mild. It's a checkbox.
Right.
But if they're not obligated, their action is a gift of time, energy, and effort that we didn't deserve or command.
And that elevation from transaction to a collaborative act of support, that is the mechanism that generates true well-being.
The practical application here is critical. This shift is the core of conscious communication.
You have to stop seeing the person fulfilling the request as just a means to your end.
And start seeing them as an active, voluntary partner in achieving your objective.
Yes. And when you approach every request with the genuine internal understanding that you are asking someone to voluntarily spend their limited resources on your behalf,
the word please gains genuine weight.
It becomes an acknowledgement of the debt you are initiating. And that sincerity, people can feel that. It's palpable.
So to become a more effective communicator, one who finds deeper satisfaction, the shift starts here. Internalize the weight of the request. Recognize the power you're yielding when you say please.
Because that prepares your brain for the true gratitude that follows.
If you knew your next request was guaranteed to be rejected without a sincere appeal, what implicit argument would you consciously use with a please to change the outcome? And how does recognizing their power change your perspective on making requests not as needs, but as appeals for voluntary resource contributions?
Okay, so if please is the acknowledgement of the executor's power of choice,
And a persuasive appeal for their resources.
then thank you has to be the acknowledgement of the profound consequences of that choice. It moves the interaction from negotiation to recognition.
Absolutely. So now we move to the definition of true gratitude. And it's rooted in a concept that might sound a little dramatic at first.
The halted objective.
The halted objective. When a request is accepted and becomes a reality, we have to recognize a powerful truth that's often hidden by, the sheer efficiency of society.
And that truth is,
Without the voluntary help that was just provided to us, the fulfillment of our objectives would be completely halted.
this halted objective concept. I mean, this is the intellectual key to unlocking conscious gratitude.
Explain that.
Well, if you're grateful just because someone did something nice for you, that's pleasant, but it's fleeting.
Right.
But if you are graceful because they prevented your entire mission from failing, that's a completely different, profound level of feeling.
It's an emotional release, social connection.
It is. Thank you must be a recognition of this dependence and then the subsequent liberation from being stuck.
We need to bring this to life with some modern examples. Go beyond the superficial.
Let's do it.
Let's consider a common high-stakes example. A tech failure in a world that depends on instant access.
Okay, imagine you're an architect. You're submitting a final multi-million-dollar bid, and your specialized modeling software crashes 2 hours before the deadline.
Oh, that's a nightmare scenario.
That's a complete nightmare. Your entire project is dead in the water, completely halted.
Right.
You call your company's internal IT department, they're already slammed, and you desperately need one specific technician, Sarah, who knows this software inside and out.
Now, Sarah's obligated to work.
She's obligated to work, yes, but she is not obligated to drop everything and prioritize your specific panic above 10 other tickets, especially if she's, say, already on her break.
All right, so you approach her.
And you say, Sarah, please, I have 2 hours and the system is down. I know you're busy, but I need your expertise to unhalt this project, and I promise to bring you coffee for a week.
The implicit argument.
Right. And if Sarah agrees, her successful repair is entirely voluntary in its prioritization.
And when the system comes back up?
That is your moment of conscious gratitude. The thank you deliver should carry the weight of the millions of dollars and the career success that her willful action just liberated.
Because without her, you fail. Your entire objective was dependent on her action.
100%. That failure, that complete stoppage, that is the true hidden cost of non-compliance.
And when we apply this realization to even mundane requests, like the bus driver waiting an extra 3 seconds for you to sprint onto the bus,
Or when a librarian finds a reference book you couldn't locate.
you realize your small objective, catching the bus, finding the data, was entirely dependent on their voluntary action.
And this realization brings us to the depth of the meaningful bond. When thank you is delivered with this understanding.
That the other person just unhalted your life.
Yes. They prevented a small or a large failure or anxiety or cost. When you realize that, it immediately stops being an empty expression. It becomes a sincere emotional transaction.
It transforms into a meaningful, reinforcing bond between you and the members of society who support your goals.
And this intentional gratitude is so valuable because it reinforces the reciprocal nature of the social contract.
It's an immediate, genuine emotional repayment of the debt that was initiated by the pleas.
Exactly. When the receiver feels the sincere acknowledgement of their true power and their voluntary contribution, not just rote politeness, they are so much more likely to support you the next time.
It creates a virtuous cycle.
Rooted in truth rather than the precariousness of forced politeness. We're using genuine emotion to solidify social stability.
We're training ourselves to see the intricate, fragile web of support we all exist within.
Every successful objective we achieve is built on the voluntary support of others.
And thank you is the mechanism we have to adequately mark that contribution and signal our appreciation of its non-obligatory nature.
That's it.
Think about a critical personal or professional goal you achieved recently. Can you trace back all the voluntary instances where another person's compliance prevented your objective from being completely halted? And if your thank you reflected the weight of that potential failure.
Okay, so understanding the philosophy here, non-obligation, halted objectives, that's all great intellectual preparation.
But it's just theory at this point.
It's theory. To truly de-pattern behavior, to move from an automatic response to genuine intention, we need a practical, actionable step.
Something that interrupts the conditioning loop.
Exactly. This is where the real practical deprogramming happens, and it's surprisingly simple.
This is the proposed action to change perception.
Right. The final stage is just a small, conscious action that can fundamentally change how we internalize this whole social structure.
So what is it?
The proposal is this. Before you say please or thank you, you must give yourself the sub-second opportunity to consciously consider the alternative reality.
The world where the request is denied.
Or the objective is halted. This brief consideration is what recalibrates the brain from a rote script to a conscious intention.
So it sounds like it requires discipline, but not a big interruption.
No, that's the key. We're talking about the brief consideration of rejection. This is less than a second. It's a neurological flash.
A fleeting thought.
Just the fleeting thought that what you're asking for might not happen, or that the support you just received could have been withheld entirely.
Let's detail the mental exercise.
Okay. So you're about to ask a friend for a ride to the airport. A major voluntary effort on their part.
Right.
Before the word please leaves your mouth, you pause for just a mental microsecond. You visualize the rejection. What's the cost?
Rushing to book an expensive last-minute cab. Maybe missing the flight.
The anxiety of finding a new solution. That anxiety, that recognition of potential failure, that is the emotional fuel for an authentic please.
And it works the same way for thank you.
Exactly the same way. When your friend drops you off, before you say thank you, you pause. You visualize the alternative. You, standing alone on the curb, scrambling.
And this visualization isn't meant to make you feel guilty.
Not at all. It's meant to inject genuine urgency and appreciation into the expression. It reminds your brain of the high stakes involved in their contribution.
So this is the difference between just performative politeness and true sincerity.
That's it. The automatic thanks sounds the same whether the stakes are low or life-altering. The pause ensures that the feeling and the intentionality match the true stakes of the request.
So by briefly visualizing that alternative world, you inject genuine weight into the expression.
Which leads directly to the transformation of language and feeling. After you glimpse that other world, where what you want doesn't happen, the expressions please and thank you sound and feel profoundly different.
Not just to the other person, but to you.
To you especially. They're loaded with the weight of the potential failure you just avoided. They vibrate with sincerity because they're connected to a genuine, realized emotional landscape.
This simple sub-second act creates a true intentional connection.
You move beyond the politeness demanded by external society, and you move toward the respect demanded by your internal understanding of interdependence and voluntary collaboration.
And the ultimate payoff.
The ultimate payoff is a profound boost in your own well-being and your social efficacy. The expression transitions from a social crutch to a sincere, powerful acknowledgement of shared purpose.
You're not just being polite anymore.
You're being consciously supported, and acknowledging that support consciously deepens your satisfaction with your place in the social world.
If you adopt this sub-second pause before your next request, what internal evidence will signal to you, perhaps a specific emotional warmth or a clarity of intent, that the expression has truly become a meaningful bond, rather than just rote, conditioned behavior? So we've taken a pretty radical deep dive into two simple, two-syllable words.
Please and thank you.
And we found that they're actually profound anchors for deeper societal contracts, personal empowerment, and, well, the avoidance of catastrophic failure.
However small those failures might seem in the moment.
The power of this knowledge, it seems to me, lies in recognizing that every single request fulfilled, every act of voluntary support, is a gift.
It's a voluntary contribution of resources. It is not an inherent obligation, and if your words are going to be effective tools for connection, they have to reflect that realization.
This deep structural understanding allows us to feel genuine, potent gratitude, and maybe more importantly, to realize just how critically dependent we are on the voluntary, discretionary collaboration of others.
Right. By moving beyond the automatic response, we inject genuine intention into our communications.
We're moving from the mechanical use of language to the conscious cultivation of powerful, reciprocal relationships.
And the key takeaway is always intention. We are swapping automatic pilot for intentional connection.
We're ensuring our words reflect the true stakes and the incredible value of collaboration that supports our daily, minute-by-minute objectives.
And that awareness is how we maximize the well-being that intentional gratitude brings to both ourselves and to our collaborators.
Don't simply take our word. Put everything you heard here to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
Remember, the power is yours.
The world is loud, but I stand still. A simple please can give me chills. What if the door stayed locked that day, and I walked on with nothing to say? Would my heart still feel complete if no thank you followed my feet? Let's remind ourselves to feel what words could heal, what love really